What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Grit. Super excited to have Dr. Deborah Moerland in the studio today and talk about going back to my roots. And we've talked about on the show a few times how I started my career was in nursing home and taking care of people. So I'm super excited to talk about where she's at in her journey. And so I don't have much else to say other than let's hear the story, because I'm interested to hear some of your story as well. So welcome to the studio, Dr. Deborah Moerland.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I know you had to drive a little bit of ways to get here today, so I really appreciate it.
It wasn't that bad.
Wasn't awesome. So yeah. So tell me a little bit about Firstlight and what you're doing.
Okay. Well, Firstlight Homecare is actually a national franchise. And a little over 7 years ago, I was looking at trying to have my own business. I'm a former educator. I've taught high school, college, been a faculty development instructor, and I decided I wanted to do something on my own. So I started looking into businesses, and I first thought about education, of course, because that's my background.
Yeah.
I also thought about like a physical fitness place, but then someone said, what about Care Patrol or something where you place people in nursing homes? And I said, oh no, I don't want to do that. So then I just started investigating the home care industry, and I felt like that was a great place for me because I always have liked working with seniors and, helping neighbors and friends, and it just seemed like a good fit for me.
Wow. So what was it? They like placing people in nursing homes, and that kind of like set you on this looking down the same path, or that industry?
Right. So I someone said, well, what about home care? And I was just working with a franchise agent. And so I looked at 5 different home cares, and I visited a couple other ones, but Firstlight stood out to me because of the amount of training they had, the network of people. And I also felt like Firstlight had ongoing support, and I still, to this day, I have a business director. We have regional conferences every year. We have a national conference. I have friends all over the United States who own Firstlight Home Cares, and we all communicate with each other, and it's helped me grow by knowing people in the industry.
I was gonna say, like, I'm sure it's helpful. You're getting into an industry that you've never been a part of before.
Right. I had never done any of that before. So they had a week-long training first, and then, well, before the training even, I went to the national conference, and I met a whole bunch of owners, and I was able to communicate with them, and I still communicate with many of them all the time.
It's kind of like going to that shared experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Because obviously I didn't have a business degree. I didn't have any experience. So in order to be successful, I felt like I needed training. And one home care agency said, oh yeah, we train you in a day. And I thought, okay, well, that's not going to work very well.
And you're coming from teaching and training, like your whole career, like a day. You're going to learn it all in a day.
It's a lot less expensive, but am I going to be successful? Probably not.
I'd love to see that day training, what that look like. So how does that all kick off? You've never been in this industry before. Obviously you have support of being part of a franchise and having other owners. Day one, like, do you find a location? Like, how does that all come together?
Well, I started looking for an office because, first of all, we had to have an office because that's part of our agreement. And I found an office that I actually now own. It was it's not like rent to own, but where like it was a balloon.
Oh, okay.
So I bought it from an attorney. And so my Okemos office I now own. And then I also have an office in Howell for this area. And it's in the McPherson building, which is next to the hospital.
Yeah.
So it's a great
nice,
location.
historic, really cool building.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. And it's very convenient. It's easy to get off the highway, get right there. It's only probably about a 25-minute drive between the two offices.
You get this location out in Okemos. Like, how do you go about hiring people and like build, what does that even look like? How many people do you have on your team and that kind of thing?
Well, I started out hiring mostly on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I had 10 caregivers start out, but then it took me a while to find some clients. So some of those didn't really actually ever work for me, but I felt like I needed the employees before trying to get some caregivers.
Yeah. It's like the chicken or the egg.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's that way every day. Like if somebody passes away, then we have people who need hours, or if a caregiver decides a different path, then we're hiring immediately. But we use quite a few systems to help us hire quickly. We're very efficient in our hiring so that we usually don't have too much overtime, so that all of our clients are well taken care of.
That's awesome. I just know getting into business, there's like so many pieces there. And so is that where the franchise really comes in and helps out with really a lot of that education?
Oh, definitely. And they help you. A franchise, I feel like, is important for anybody who's never been in business before, who doesn't have a business degree like me. And I just basically felt like if I could be trained, I could do the job. And it really does take a while. I thought in 3 months I wouldn't be teaching online at night, and I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
But, the main goal is to make sure that people are well taken care of and that we have good people on board. And so we do, everything that most home cares do, background checks and, drug test, and we check references, and we try to hire the best people because we want to provide the best service.
How long have you guys been open now?
7 years.
Okay.
In July it was. And then we opened our office here in the Howell, Brighton area about 3 years ago.
So what has been like the biggest learning lesson you've had in that 7 years?
Biggest lesson, just to make sure that all aspects of the hiring process is complete before putting someone on the schedule. And so we've had some things programmed, and now we can literally see every step of the process in a program we have. And so I can see who still needs to turn in their documents, who needs to do their drug tests, who needs to do orientation. So anybody can look at that and see what our pipeline of new hires looks like. And that's been a very good lesson to learn, because, I don't want to have somebody who hasn't had a background check be hired, or somebody who didn't turn in their driver's license, and then we find out later that they didn't even have one, or, it's just all about being very thorough in what we do.
Before we get back at it, a quick shout out for our sponsor, Playbook Builder, powered by AI. This show has always been about giving the resources and the tools to small business owners in order to grow and scale your businesses successfully. And so I'm so excited to partner with a company that does just that. If you've listened and heard any of our guests, you've heard talking about building process, developing and training, building culture, are all such important pieces in order to building a great company. Well, Playbook Builder, powered by AI, has come along and revolutionized the game on how you can do that for your team and people. Whether you're onboarding new people, training and developing, continued training and developing, you're looking to scale your business or eventually sell, or most importantly, you're looking to build a legacy as a visionary. Playbook Builder, powered by AI, is able to solve those problems for you. For me as a consultant, I've been able to plug in, and it's so amazing for what I do for clients. I can now leave a legacy. And so, for example, I'm next week training a new hire for a company, and I've been able to build out the next month of her training program using Playbook Builder, powered by AI. The cool thing about the AI, what does that do? What's the hardest part of building out a process? Taking this step by step and making it easy to learn. What the AI piece does is you can actually type in what process it is, whether you want to onboard, if you want to onboard a new employee, type in onboard a new employee and what type of industry you're in, and the AI will put together a a foundation for you to build out your playbook. It is absolutely incredible. But don't take my word for it. Head on over to playbookbuilder.com, and these guys have set it up to where you can take this for a test run with no obligations. Plug in what kind of playbook you want to build. If it's a sales training playbook, for example, plug that in the description. And in the description, you can also put in what kind of industry you're in, and then hit generate, and it will generate a playbook for you. Impress from there, and you can take a 30-day free trial of the playbook system altogether. Whenever anyone starts a business, we're thinking about employees, but then you're literally the care of people, you know, so like you're thinking of background checks and all that stuff that has to be done. It's so interesting because so many people that are listening are people that are starting businesses, or they're running businesses. Maybe they're in that point where it's like they need to hire people. And I know even for me, you know, I've been in this spot of doing business by myself, and it's like that chicken or egg question, you know, like how do you do that balance when it's like, if somebody leaves, you know, all of a sudden now, how do you get this person hours or now all of a sudden you have a new patient and you need more hours? Like that's such a hard balance.
Oh yes. We lost quite a few people in March for some reason. We had some long-term clients who passed away, and all of a sudden we had 10 people who needed hours, which was unusual. And so, you know, I just reach out to people I know and say, you know, if you know of anyone needing care, we have employees, which usually most people are saying the exact opposite. They don't have the employees, but we have a really good system of hiring. So usually we can cover something within a day or two, and we can get people hired quickly if we need to.
That's great. Like it's a double-edged sword, because you talked about like we need patience. So like how did you go about doing that? Did you open the doors and all of a sudden people were calling you, or how does that, you know, I know you do a podcast, for example, and how that maybe all plays in.
Well, to start with, we just hoped our website would bring them in, but that takes a while.
Yeah.
But there's networking. We get to know people in the industry, and then once they know who we are, you know, and they have referrals, then they're likely to give those to us or other home cares that they trust. So we really try to do a really good job with whoever we have come on.
I asked that question because it's like so many times, like, you know, we put up the website. We hope that that it works, you know, and that's really what it is. Like we hope that somebody sees it and they start calling, you know, but it's like, it takes more than that a lot of times.
Oh, so. Right. It takes a lot. We have, you know, we have networking coffee hours in the Lansing area. And around this area, I don't know too many people, but I'm starting to learn who the people who are in charge. And so it just takes a little bit of time to get to know people. And then once they trust you, then that's when you start getting those referrals coming in. We also use some online referral sources like agingcare.com. And unfortunately, you know, they might give one client to 5 agencies, and then we all are kind of calling, trying to call, and then they get tired of us calling. But you know, we try not to bother them too much and try to give them alternate ways to reach us, so that if they do need the care, we don't go after things that we can't cover either. We want to make sure that, you know, if I go to a home visit and I don't have any employees available, I let people know right away.
Yeah.
But if we have somebody I'm pretty sure is going to be working for us very soon, you know, I'll say, well, in 2 days we can start, or 3 days we could start, and we make it happen.
That's awesome. It's cool. You can kind of just figure it out.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it is a scheduler too. And so my daughter works for me. She's our scheduler, but I'm always saying, okay, we have this client here. And then we have like a group chat that's between all of the employees in the office. So everybody knows, oh, we lost a client, or, you know, we need more hours for this person. And so it's all about communication.
So with that, do you get like referrals from your employees kind of thing for clients?
Oh, sometimes we have, yes. So some of the employees know people as well. So
yeah.
And we do get a lot of caregivers from our current caregivers because they like the job. So then they'll refer their friends who happen to work in the same industry. So
it's, we talked, obviously we met from Steve Ziskowski, who from SiriusNet, and so talking about that know, like, trust and building relationships through referrals. I was just talking to a guy who calls it, instead of referrals, he calls it the transfer of trust.
right.
Versus, you're calling somebody that's been called 5 or 6 times because that lead's been passed around. And the hardest thing to do, I've been in sales my whole life, from a business or from a sales standpoint, is to become human. So like when you're calling and on that lead and they've been called by 5 to different people, they don't see you. They see you as an object versus a person.
Right.
And versus having that referral, that connection, doing business, somebody sending you somebody, it's like they've already, that wall is down and they see you as a person.
Right. Right. I sometimes will send videos out, like in an email campaign, so they can see some of the satisfied clients we've had. Also, I'm on TV locally a lot, so people feel like they know me, even though I don't really know them. But I'll hear somebody say, "Oh, I know you," and then they figure out they saw me on TV. So
this has been happening to me more and more often. Like, you don't think about it when you're on things like this. And
right.
The other day I went to an event and actually put on by Rob Johnson here in the Entrepreneurs Forum for the Brighton Chamber. And somebody came up to me and was like, "Hi, Jason." And I was like, and I pride myself on remembering people and their faces and names and like conversations we've had. And I turned around, I'm like, I have no idea who this person is. Like I come to find out they listen to the show and they know me from that. But it's like, I don't, hey, how's it going? And so were you doing like the TV shows and content and stuff like that before you started your business, or did that come along?
No, it's not really a TV show, although I've been interviewed on AARP, but it's more about educating the community on different things about dementia or Parkinson's or VA benefits. And they're very brief. They're about a minute long. So they're not very long. They're like a commercial, but more educational. Instead of call us now, how commercials are, it's more about educating the community. And so that's how I got the idea for my podcast. Is they kind of wanted me to do a TV show, but the cost was out of my range. And so I got to thinking, well, how else can I educate the community on senior issues? People think hospice means you're going to die the next day, or they think that if you have surgery, you have to go to rehab afterwards. But in reality, neither of those things are true. So people can go home and have the rehab come in, and they can have home care come in and help them until they're able to do things on their own. Or they can, like hospice. We've had somebody on hospice for 2 years before because they get that one-on-one care. And sure, they may think they're terminal within 6 months, but if they have the one-on-one care and the person had dementia, but she was well taken care of. She was getting up. The caregivers were, doing things with her, making sure she ate, even if it took 2 hours, because she would forget that she needed to eat. But it's more about good quality care than anything. And making the person comfortable. It doesn't necessarily mean that person's going to die in a day or two. And that's a misconception. So I'm interviewing people in hospice. I'm interviewing people in all different areas of senior care so that people are educated and they can make decisions on what they want to do.
Because it's like almost, we live off from old wives' tales. Right? Like we just pass down, we hear this information from a friend or from our mom or from our, like it's passed down and we just assume all those things are true. Right.
And sometimes, if somebody does go on hospice, they don't live very long. Yeah. But that's not the normal situation. So, and the biggest issue is people wait too long to go on hospice. So they could have a better quality of life, but they don't want to hear that word. So there's that bad misconception. And so next week, I think it's next week or within the next 2 episodes, I'm interviewing a hospice specialist so that the myths can be, shared and so people have a better idea of when they might want to consider that.
Yeah. Yeah. I share this story all the time because I talk about sales, right? And so to me, the thing that's not taught in sales is the value of people. Outward mindset is what I call it, and thinking about other people. And I share this story because last year I was on a friend's podcast, and she was telling me about how she got to leave the house for the first time in a few months because her mom had dementia. And between her and her dad, they took care of her mom because she had a tendency to get out of the house, and they should get out of the house and wander out. And so somebody had to be with her all the time.
Right.
And so I don't know who they brought in, but they had brought in somebody that came in and took care of her. And she said for a process of for a month or so, her and her dad or somebody would be there when this lady would show up and take care of her mom, because she's like, she has dementia. It's like she forgets who we are sometimes, like, let alone this lady. And we don't want her to freak out that who are you and where's everybody at. And so they let her get used to and know this lady. And she was like, I was like, so what's different? Why can you leave now? And she was like, Jason, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. She was like, because it's not just taking care of these certain needs, it's taking care of all their needs. And our biggest human need is to be seen, heard, and felt, right? And so this person, she was like, when I'm there, I've got my business, I've got all these things going on. She's like, I love my mom. She was like, I'm thinking about other things. She's like, my dad, same thing, like he's got other things going on. And so he's not always there, especially all day long, as she's telling the same story over again. He may not be paying attention. This lady is 5,000% there, committed to hear her, right? She has nothing else going on. She's there for her mom. And she was like, so it's just really, she's like, it's absolutely the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. She was like, this lady shows up and she has no idea who she is, but she cries. She's so excited that she cries. She's so excited to see her because this lady has fed her inherent need, and she just remembers her.
Right.
She not remembers her, but she knows that she's so happy to see her.
Right. She knows that that's someone she can trust. She might not know who she is or why she's there really, but she has a good feeling when that person shows up.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing when, we have good caregivers. We don't keep people that we have problems with. I mean, because it's so important. But our good caregivers are amazing. They go above and beyond. They do way more than is expected many times. And they just care about people. And that's the main skill a person has to have to be a caregiver, is just being able to care about somebody as they would their own parent or, a family member. And they make sure that everything is being taken care of for them. And, people with dementia, especially, I would say probably 75% of our clients have dementia. That's the biggest problem that we see. And
why you need somebody in your home.
Right. And many of the family members are burned out. If a spouse is caring for someone with dementia, their health starts declining. Absolutely. And then eventually, like right now, we have a client and she has Parkinson's and she has some dementia, and the man is taking care of her, but he just had heart surgery last week. So, we just require 1 4-hour shift a week if that helps the family, but everybody gets to choose how much time they get. They can increase hours, they can cancel anytime, but usually people, once they get a caregiver in, they realize the benefit of their own health as well.
Pat, so with you being in Lansing or Okemos, and then Howell, where's your service area? Where will you go out to?
We kind of cover all of the Lansing area. We can go south to Jackson, but we don't really go that far.
Yeah.
Out to Portland, which is west, not towards towards Grand Rapids, but there are Firstlights in Ann Arbor. There's another owner in Flint, and then some owners on the west side in Grand Rapids, and I think Grand Haven and Kalamazoo. So we don't go in each other's territories, obviously, but basically we cover pretty much all of mid-Michigan. We just don't cover Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti and Saline, and Canton.
Okay.
right now because the other Firstlight owner owns that, but we don't want to, step over our boundaries because
Yeah.
that's the nice part about having a franchise.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Before I started my business, I was in a wireless franchise. I was a part of Verizon wireless franchise, but it's the same thing. We had our territories, and it was,
Right.
we had our areas, and
Mm-hmm.
we all respected each other. It's the same
Oh,
thing.
right.
You go to the conventions, you
Mm-hmm.
meet, you build relationships. We're going through the same experience.
Right. Definitely. And we refer to each other all the time. If someone calls our office and they need somebody not in our area, we always refer out to the other Firstlights because they've all had the same training I have. And I believe I haven't seen a bad Firstlight owner, to be honest. They're all there for the same reason. They're there to help people and, they do a good job. So
What was it that kept leading you to that, to this industry?
I don't really know exactly. I got to thinking about my childhood,
Yeah.
and when I was a kid, I used to go visit some older people in our neighborhood. My friend and I would just go by there because we felt like, oh, nobody's going to visit these old people, so let's go do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but we would go. I think we got cookies too, but but still, we enjoyed going and talking to them and making them feel good. And then I also had an older bus driver, and he was my bus driver when I was in school, and he had dementia, or he didn't have dementia, his wife did. But once his wife passed, I would go pick him up and take him places, and I just did it because I felt like he was alone and didn't have much to do, and so I'd take him to games or whatever. But I just like helping people, and I feel like this is a calling. I still teach because I still love to teach too. I teach online for an online college, but that's not the same as actually meeting these people and, figuring out what we can do to help them have a better life.
Yeah. It's like you said, there's somebody that they're human, they're a person. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times they're lonely because friends or spouses have passed away, kids are out doing their thing.
Right.
To have somebody that invests that time and listens.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's just a life changer.
Oh, right. And I absolutely love going to visit the clients because I went to go check on the man last week who had the heart surgery. I ended up visiting for 2.5 hours, but it was a good visit. I enjoy the company, and they they absolutely love it when I stop by. So, and I usually get some really good friendships out of it.
How often do you get to go out?
Well, I used to cover shifts, but I don't anymore
Yeah.
because I just don't have the time. But I've covered overnight shifts for people. I've done 1 hour shifts just to help one man because he had had a car accident a long time ago. Then when he got cancer, he wasn't able to transfer himself. He was he wasn't very old. He was in his 60s, but he had cancer, and he lost the strength to transfer from the bed to the wheelchair to the bed. So I would just go for that 1 hour to help him out and talk basketball. And then and then he would, that way he didn't have to go somewhere else besides his own home. So
That's so cool. And
you,
you just talk basketball and
right. Yeah. You just make friendships out of a lot of it.
it's so cool because again, these people have so much experience and so much wisdom to like listen to people. I'm a fan of stories. Obviously, I'm a fan of hearing people's stories. I'm a believer that we all have an incredible story, which is why I'm doing exactly this. And so to sit with people like that's so cool to be able to touch their lives because again, there may not be many people coming in and touching their lives like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, the caregivers are so important. I mean, we couldn't do it without the good people we have. And obviously, I couldn't ever cover that many shifts, but I did used to cover quite a few. I haven't covered any in a couple of years, but I still try to get out and meet and visit with the people we've already signed up. We also I have a care coordinator for each area, and they are in touch with them a lot more than I am, but they're also communicating with me if anything's going on. So if a client's declining, I know that. They're calling at least once a month to see how services are going. And then the people who are declining more as they age, we're checking on them more often. We want to make sure that if we can help prevent something bad from happening, we do. But
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we're not miracle workers, but it's just being aware of the surroundings and what they're used to and what's happening with them.
As this business has grown and you've opened up multiple locations, some of it is what you said just now, but how does that your role change?
It's more management than being out there.
Uh-huh.
But I do many of the home assessments yet. I don't do all of them, but I used to do all of them. So because I actually do like to meet the people, and
Yeah.
so I think that's part of why I do this. And there's a passion for that, is just to know who we're helping and what we're doing to help them.
So I love that look back. It's like 7 years. And for me, it's like looking back at some of the funny things I thought, or like, again, that mistake this is the mistakes you make, or the things you thought were true and they weren't.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, we struggled for a little while. We were working with some companies that weren't paying us, took out bad loans. I almost was homeless. Like, things like that are part of the story of owning a business. And even if you're doing everything you can still fail. And I was really close, but I don't give up. So I just kept going. I had a good friend help me out. And if it wasn't for him, I might have failed. But it just worked out that I feel like this is what I was meant to do.
Exactly. And that's exactly, like, I love this, and I love how vulnerable the entrepreneurs get on, or people that are on this show get, because again, this is not always easy. A lot of times it's hard.
Oh yeah.
But it's worth it.
Oh, it is. It is. It's actually harder to run this business than it was to get a doctorate degree.
Wow.
And I thought that was the hardest thing I had ever done. But running a business, because there are so many different people and everybody's different personalities, and you have to know how to deal with every single different type of personality. Because right now we have, I would say, around 55 caregivers, and we have around 70 clients. And everybody has to get along. And most of the time, they love the caregiver, but once in a great while, it's not a good fit. It doesn't mean the caregiver's not good. It just means that those two people are not going to be a good fit together.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen often. But then you have to figure out what's the plan. Who's going to switch shifts? Who's going to do this or that? Nobody wants to give up their good caregiver and get a new one. So there's always something going on. And, when I would say about 3 years ago, my blood pressure was so high from this job, it was crazy. But now I just kind of go with the flow, and I just tell everybody, okay, we're doing the best that we can. We are not, trying to, just pull something or anything like that. We are on top of everything. We answer our phones. We get back to people right away. And I think it's just important that people know that as long as we're doing the best we can, if somebody does something that, we just go out and fix it. We just figure out what we need to do. And so once I got that attitude, it was so much easier, because I worry like nobody else. Everybody says I worry way too much, but I just kind of calm down a little bit.
How did you take that deep breath and stop worrying that much?
Just by going through and figuring out and making sure that all of our processes are being done the way they should be.
Huge.
So I now can listen to every phone call. I can see every text between clients, caregivers, and our office staff. Everything that goes through our office, I know exactly what's going on. And so a lot of it used to be, well, she said this or he said that. And now it's so much easier because I'll just listen to it and say, well, I know what really happened. Before I'd have to try to figure out.
Game.
Right. And it's not easy. So now everything's recorded. Everything is like, I can see that my office people are doing their job. They have tasks to do. We aren't missing people making calls or anything like that. Everything it's more systematic, and it makes things run so much easier. And it took us a little while to get there, but every day I try to think of something I can improve on, and people tell me to just slow down. Okay, we're doing this already. Okay, but we could improve here.
That's fantastic, though. Like, it's knowing that there's always, it's grow or die.
Right. You have to.
You have to. And like, just how much easier life is, versus being stressed and taking on everything.
Right.
Because I think a lot of times us as entrepreneurs, our personality type, we do take on so much because we're used to solving problems and, being those drivers.
Right. Definitely. And I used to want to do everything, but now I just if there's an issue with a client, I'd have my care coordinator deal with that. But if it can't be dealt with her, then they go to me afterwards. And the same way with any caregiver issues or scheduling, I don't want to hear it because, number one, it's still going to go to the scheduler. So I just quit answering the phones. But if it is for me, I will call people back. And I always let people know, like the clients all have my phone number, my cell number. And if they need to contact me, if they're unhappy with anybody in the office or if anything is going on, which hardly ever I get a call, but still they have my number and they know how to reach me. And there's nothing, there's no reason for me to answer every single call. Like, there's no reason for me to do all the billing. There's no reason for me to do, there are certain things I do, and I've given off a lot of it so that I can grow the business now.
How did you make that break? Was it easy for you?
Not really, because I like to do everything.
Yeah.
But then that kind of,
You realize you can't do everything.
I realized it, yes. I needed sleep. 4 hours of sleep a night is not good. Not at all. So
I love the processes and everything. How do you start plugging those in and then handing off, like delegating those responsibilities and then sleeping at night? You're like, oh, they're done. They're like,
well, because I can see what's being done, what isn't, and I can run reports now. And then I work with Clark Keller. I don't know if you know him.
Yep.
Clark has helped us a lot with our processes and automating things for our business, and I highly recommend anybody using him.
I'm going through that process right now. I just started working with him a couple of months ago, and it's been awesome. Like every day I'm telling my wife, and I can invoice, and I can do this. It's like all the different things from this system and structure.
Oh, it's nice. And also, when we get a referral, they get into an email campaign, and then they get text messages every so often. We don't want to overload people because they get annoyed and then they put stop. But we're trying to, fine tune things every day with him. And he is incredible. He'll say, oh, well, you can do this, you can do that. And this will save you time. Okay, time is good. Time is money. So I feel like he's helped us a lot with our hiring process, and everybody has their own hiring process.
Yeah.
But, we have a certain way we do things. So we'll get our applicants entered. They'll be able to schedule a interview. So our care coordinators are not wasting time calling people to schedule an interview. They are actually getting an interview scheduled by sending a text message. So that saves time. And then just having the whole process. Once they do the interview, they schedule a drug test. They make sure they upload their documents. They have their I-9 information entered. They do orientation. They and then we run a background check. So everything is in there, so nothing gets missed. And then once they go to hire ready, the scheduler knows to put them on the schedule. So it's just it's so much better than, oh, I forgot to tell you, I hired this person.
Which can probably get really messy as you have
Right.
55 people.
Mm-hmm.
55. Yeah.
Right. Right. I mean, processes are made for a reason.
Yes.
But I don't have to micromanage so much because I can just kind of look in and say, okay, this person's been here a week. What's going on? Has anybody reached out? So, and it's the same way with clients as caregivers. If they don't get an immediate response, a caregiver is going to find another job.
Absolutely.
And a client is going to find another agency. So we try to answer the calls quickly for everything because, speed to lead or whatever they say.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to be. We just have to be on top of everything.
I was working with a client and we were in a leadership meeting last maybe March and we were talking about that from the standpoint of I'm working on sales from attracting clients, but it's the same thing, using the same process for attracting and hiring employees.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got to work them. You can't just be lackadaisical about,
Right.
not calling back and not going through that process because they will find another job.
Right. Right. And as soon as they apply, we need to be entering them in so they can schedule an interview.
Yeah.
And they get to schedule it based on the care coordinator's availability. So it's pretty easy. I mean, it's so much more simple than calling people to schedule an interview than doing it later. And then in the meantime, there's just so many things that we can still probably improve on. We always have meetings with Clark, so.
I'm just beginning that process, like I said, but it's been so awesome to just sit and look at where it's going. Mm-hmm. Even sending out an invoice and then it coming out, a couple of days later and shooting out a message as a reminder. And it's like, so excited to work with you. Just the little messages and the things. Mm-hmm. Automation is huge.
Automation is incredible.
Yeah, all the stuff that we slave and waste our time on.
Right,
that
right.
we don't like doing anyways.
Right, and that allows us to have more time, personal time, with meeting the clients or contacting the clients and talking to them and making sure that their services are up to par. If we're wasting time doing other things, then something's going to give, So the quality care is most important, and all these remedial tasks are being taken care of.
Absolutely.
And saving everybody time and energy.
You mentioned to me when we were talking earlier that you just recently got accredited.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes. Well, in the state of Michigan, there are no licenses for non-medical home care, number one. But I heard that it's a possibility that the auto no-fault payers will only use accredited agencies in the future. So that was one reason why I chose to do that. The second reason was because Michigan may become a licensed state in a year or two. So why not be ahead of the game? And
Absolutely.
The third reason is to see where we fell short in terms of being an accredited agency. So our accreditation process took a few months because we had to, it felt like busy work, to be honest, because you have to write every policy and everything up. You have them, but maybe it's not all written. So it was literally about 100 pages of stuff. But we wanted to make sure that they knew what we did and how we followed things. So it's all about quality and making sure things were being done the proper way. So then when they did the audit, it was to show that we are a quality agency and give us some ideas on what we could do to improve. So basically, we put in a system where sometimes when caregivers were clocking out, they couldn't clock out, but then they didn't add their notes. So now we have a process to make sure notes are added daily. Just because if it's not documented, it didn't happen. But you don't realize little things, and that could turn into a big thing. So we fixed that. And then even though, let's say, it's written all over a care plan that somebody's a fall risk, you don't do the fall risk assessment, they didn't like it. So we make sure that now when a packet's turned in, the scheduler reviews the packet and makes sure everything is totally filled out. I mean, it completely said, Parkinson's, fall risk, must use a gait belt, everything, but that one form wasn't in there. So it was like, what are you going to do to fix this? So now we have a plan. And so we have a checkbox, for having every single thing in there just to make sure it's clear. But the audit itself, it went very well, other than those couple minor things that were nothing.
Things you don't even think about.
Right. And it was just to also, one thing we hadn't done before was have like an emergency drill. And so we decided we would do it through our system that we use, WellSky. So it's a quick way to contact everybody. However, we found out most people didn't respond that way because they were supposed to respond, they were okay, and where they were located, just as a drill. It was an emergency fake tornado.
Test the emergency broadcast system.
Right. But so then we put them all into our DDM system through Clark and sent it out, and almost everybody responded. So we changed up how we're going to do the emergency drill. It's going to be automatically done through that system instead, because
what a testimony.
Right. I mean, it was so much better. Everybody responded more quickly, and I don't know why. I don't have a clue why they wouldn't respond with the other system, but we learned something from doing it. And then, of course, we put fire exit signs up, even though there's really only one way out. But, just emergency plan. If something were to happen to me, who would take over?
Yeah.
Just those kinds of things. And it's pretty obvious who would, but if it isn't written, if it's not documented,
it's not obvious.
It's not obvious to anybody. So yeah, it was accreditation is hard, but if you're already doing the right thing, it's not that hard. It's just a few minor adjustments to get that accreditation, and then you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
That's so cool, because it seems like it is that validation that we're doing things right.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like you were able to focus in on a couple things, fix a couple of small things, and do good.
Right. And we didn't have to even do it, but like I said, I wanted to do it, and just in case in the future we need it. And if we don't, at least we found a couple of things that we could improve on, and so that's what we did.
I love that foresight too, of thinking, because who knows how that happens in the future. Now you're prepared for it,
right?
Versus everybody trying to scramble and get ready for that.
Right.
And then their stuff be a mess.
Well, I don't know. I would say, well, our corporate office was trying to get us all Joint Commission accredited. But some of them already have to because they live in licensed states. But, why not be the best if we can be the best? So
that's absolutely it. I love it. I love how a little bit ago you were talking about like going through the struggle, but you had friends. You had a friend that came in and helped you. And that's such a common theme. And what I talk about all the time is like, people are our greatest resources. Like,
oh, right.
People come into our life and, like no matter what we're going through, and can really help us turn it around and pick it up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I really don't know if I would still be doing this if it hadn't been for him. But I totally appreciate what he has done for me, which was financial. I was out of resources because I hadn't been paid. I had payroll to make, and, your people aren't going to stay if you don't pay them. So unfortunately, there were some things that I had to get fixed, and it finally just worked out. Everything happens for a reason, I figure.
Everything happens for a reason.
That's my favorite saying.
I love it. It's so true, though. And a lot of times we sit and we look at these speed bumps and these things that come in, and it's like, they're there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to learn from this.
Right. Appreciate what you have and what like that friendship will probably never end. I mean, not just because it was helpful, but because it helps so many people. I mean, if you think about all of the people we impact every day.
Yeah.
At one point I
Yep.
thought maybe I should just quit, but then there are all these people counting on me. I can't just do this.
Yeah.
I have employees, I have clients, everybody else is counting on me doing a good job in the business in order to keep them employed and to keep their services going.
I had one of my clients on Coffee and Grit last year sometime, and he was talking about how that's very thing, the impact you have. So you think about, you said you had 70 patients and 55 employees.
Yes.
So now you look at your employees, their spouse, their kids, their immediate family, their friends, all the people, because like you're at a job most of your time. So how's that impacting, how's that impacting your everyday life? And same thing with your patients. It's impacting because like you have family members that if you weren't there doing a good job,
right,
or either way, right, you're impacting their lives.
Oh, right.
It quantifies really, really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It's amazing how one little slip up could like ruin everything. I mean, and you don't want that. You want a good reputation. You want to be known for providing good services. And I think most of the time, 99% of the time, we have really great people. And it's all about the people that work for me. It's not anything else, because, if I were not picky about who we hired and I say, oh yeah, that's okay. They have a felony. Let's just hire them because we need a body. No,
we need a body. Yeah.
yeah, that's not going to be good. So.
Felonies, okay. Domestic violence, it's all good.
No, they're fine.
How do you go through then? Like, do you have to go through like processes for like disciplining and in flushing out the wrong people?
Oh yeah. Well, our interview process is very specific. So, and then the background check. We run a national with a sex registry, everything. So, that's part of the accreditation too. We were running, and we also will run a Michigan iChat report too to get more specific details if needed. Because if it's something that happened 20 some years ago and nothing's happened since and it's a minor misdemeanor, people change too. So,
yeah.
And they've already worked for another home care or in assisted living or something. So, but I need more detail. So, but in terms of discipline, we tend to bring somebody in, have a conversation with them, or we coach them to do a better job first. And if that doesn't work, then, we just kind of take away hours and then they go somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
nice.
Usually most people are open to learning and they want to do a good job. But sometimes
the right culture, people don't want to go to work and suck.
Right. I mean, I think so.
Most people don't. I'm sure there are
Right.
people that just find sucking, period. But,
right.
yeah.
Some people are lazy or
Yeah.
need to know more, don't realize what they should have been doing in some cases. So it's just more about coaching, and if they have a good heart and they care about those people, they're going to be looking at what they should be doing.
How are you able to, because you've been like this lifelong teacher, how are you able to bring that into what you're doing as a business owner?
Oh, well, a lot of it is the podcast, of course.
Yeah.
That we're doing called Senior Care Insights. So that I really like doing because educating the community on different options. Everybody doesn't have to go to assisted living. Everybody doesn't have to go to a nursing home. Everybody doesn't have to go to rehab. And there are so many options. And so I think that's part of why I started doing it, is for educational purposes. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of our business, I've hired someone to do our orientations because she has the same kind of philosophy I do on education. We get along really well. She's out of Indiana, but her name's Kathleen. But she's really into doing things the right way and testing the right way. But if I were doing all of that education, I wouldn't be able to run a business. So
Yeah.
it's all about finding the right people with the right values and the right philosophy of education to have the whole system work well together.
Finding the right people and knowing, like, do they align with your core values?
Right, right. And it's not just, oh, well, we did it. No, they also go over everything very thoroughly, make sure they understand everything, they have them sign everything. So I don't have a doubt in my mind that they weren't told something. They were told everything that they need to know to do the job.
Yeah.
To start the job. And we do a lot of educating at the client's home. So if we have a new client and a new caregiver, we'll have somebody who's already a good caregiver go out and train them, or one of the care coordinators, make sure they understand what they need to do for that person. Rather than, oh, we're all going to learn how to wash our hands today, or all going to learn how to use this. Because every person is... No, everybody's a little different.
Yeah.
Everybody gets changed differently. Everybody gets transferred a little differently. Even using a Hoyer, which is a way that people get transferred in a sling, they're all different. I mean, there are manual ones.
What are these like these days? Because I worked in a nursing home. This was like,
they're electric
99.
now.
They're electric. I had to crank, right? Like,
they're much easier, but not everybody has those either. So
yeah.
So it's just it's all different, but every person's needs are different.
Yeah. So like, do you have some people that are like more like that rehabbing patient, like where you're thinking more like rehab and I guess you have like long term, then you have people that maybe are working out of care, or
usually not.
No.
Most of our clients, like I said, usually have dementia, or they're very much bedridden. Although we've had a few where they got the help after a surgery, or they got some help after they fell, and then they came home, and once they built their strength back up, then they didn't use us anymore. Not because we did a bad job, but because we did a good job and they actually got better. So, and they highly recommend us still, because they know that the caregivers were very, very helpful in those situations.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome when you see somebody that like change, like grows, like gets better.
Right. That's really
you
really
say
nice.
Because you don't see it happen very often.
Right. And we hate to not have the client, but still, it's like, all right, they're doing so much better. This is great, And some people, have cancer, and then they go through their chemo and radiation, and they're down for a little bit, and then they get in remission, and then they start doing things on their own. But then if they go out of remission, they might call us back. But it just depends. Everybody is a little different.
That's how do you I guess when you're intaking people, how do you understand like how different they are and what you have to do from a care standpoint? So
we ask very specific questions: how they transfer, if they can walk, do they use a walker? I usually spend 1 hour or more in a person's home getting information, and I mean I've been 2.5 hours at one time sometimes. If they want to talk, I just let them. I mean, I'm there to make sure that I know everything about them that I need to know, that we can give to the caregiver so they know what to do. And so, and it changes over time too. So we do, like I said, we do the monthly calls. The caregivers know to contact us if they have, any decline or any change in their health. So we try to stay on top of everything.
That's awesome. And I asked that question because like you're a different business than what we've ever had on. Yet at the same time, it's at the end of the day, no matter what business we're in, it's about people and it's about discovery and it's about learning those unique people. And a lot of times we try to put things in a box, or we, try to do a one size fits all and stuff. And so I'm big, no matter what business we are, we've got to really ask those questions and figure out what's going on in these situations to be able to take care of them, whether it's from a physical nurturing standpoint, like what you're doing, or taking care of them with a service, or whatever our business is.
Right. It is all about the people. If you can make the people happy, that's all you really need to do, as long as they're being well taken care of. And it's in so many different ways.
And that's when you get the referrals, and that's where, it all comes back. It
Oh,
all
right.
comes back to you.
All right. What goes around comes around.
What goes around comes around. And that is like the perfect mic drop way to end it.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Deborah, thank you so much for coming out and joining us today and sharing more about what you're doing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure.